yes, it's more Rhaegar and Lyanna content, more apologia. That's what you get here. Lots and lots of Rhaegar apologia. Everything we say about Lyanna is just Rhaegar apologia. Just remember that. I'm kidding, of course. Where's me? There I am. There's my silly mate. It's me. It's the theory horned guy. Yeah. No, we're here to talk about some fun stuff. Some actual Lyanna magic theory. This will be less character stuff. This is straight up magic theory, hopefully. And am I coming through good? Yes, looks good. Looks good. Hopefully you have watched my RLJ Secret Weirwood Wedding video, because we're going to expand on it. I dropped a little tidbit in there, which was essentially, what if Lyanna had her Green Seer or Skin Changer gifts, the gifts that are latent in the Stark bloodline, awakened on the Isle of Faces? Oh, thank you, Elizabeth. Welcome to Squish Her. Got the red mermaid hair and everything. This is tremendous. In any case, welcome everyone. It's nice to have you. Thanks for joining me on this beautiful Sunday. Let me quickly tell you what we're going to do today. Let's get right to the point. Give you an idea. If you're clicking on this video in the future and you want to know what's happening, we're going to explore this idea, okay? Basically, in the video, The Secret Weirwood Wedding, we did some timeline stuff, and we looked at the picture of Rhaegar and Lyanna on what appears to be the Isle of Faces, and we figured out that, in fact, they would have had quite a lot of time to hang out there if they wanted to. And this mushroom in the background here, I have a camera set up, and it was just kind of looking weird in the foreground, so I put my mushroom hat on there. It's kind of in keeping. In any case, Rhaegar and Lyanna disappear. Jon is conceived almost a year later, and we don't even know where he's conceived. We only know that Lyanna is ultimately found with baby Jon at the Tower of Joy by Ned, presumably. If you want to argue some of that, that's fine. But more or less, she is found at the Tower of Joy many months later. So one of the big things in this video is me realizing that, hey, they might have hung out on the Isle of Faces for quite a while, okay? And Howland Reed visited the Isle of Faces right before they did, and he hung out for quite a while. He was there before the tourney of Harrenhal, quote, all winter. We don't know how long that winter lasted, and we're only talking about the winter up until the fall, spring, and there was a little more winter afterwards. But Howland was there for months too. So I made, we're going to need a montage when you got to have stuff happen. And I forget the lyrics, but you know how it is. You crossfade it, a lot of time passes, and now we're an expert. So same question for Lyanna. What were they doing on the Isle of Faces? We talked about, well, maybe Rhaegar, was talking to the Green Men. Maybe Rhaegar had special dreams on the Isle of Faces that he couldn't have had elsewhere or something like that. But we should also ask questions about Lyanna, of course. And the main idea with this is that if she has some sort of a magic gift, green sight like Jojen, or a Green Seer ability like Bran, or just Skin Changer ability, this gives her the ability to see the future. The wolves give you psychic dreams as well, or can. They seem to have a psychic network. So this would be part of the point, would be for Lyanna to be able to inform herself about the future and see Jon's necessity, so it's not all like, oh, Rhaegar is convincing her, or the Green Men and Rhaegar and Howland are all like teaming up, giving a PowerPoint, and Lyanna's like, okay, fine. Lyanna's a person too, and she has magic in her genes. And so that's kind of where this theory starts, is like, there's kind of a reason for it, for Lyanna to see the future. There's a purpose to it. And there's another purpose too, which is that if any of us think that her spirit needs to talk to Jon, at the end of Jon's, we all think he's going to have a dream sequence when he's dead, and he'll realize at least some degree of he's a Targaryen and what RLJ is about, or something, at Azor Ahai, etc. And a lot of people think that he might see his mom, Lyanna, in his crypt stream or in some sort of dream. And for that to happen, really, her spirit needs to be lingering. It could just be like a dream, like Jaime dreams of his dead mother. But that's comes across more as a dream he's having, not a psychic contact he's having with his mother. You can see Jaime working out issues there and stuff. I have a bird seed stuck in my teeth. Don't say that to me. You have to go look in the mirror. I don't think I do. Okay. Anyway, so point is, You're making me self-conscious. Now you have to go look at who said that? Who did that to me? Matt Vader. Terrible. Okay. I'll take a drink of my Gatorade. Point is, it's trolling. Pure troll. I've been trolled. I'm easy to troll. The millet is meant for the birds, not the humans. But it's so crunchy and tasty. Okay. And so, the other thing, yes, if Jon's going to have a real encounter with her spirit, where Lyanna can tell him stuff that he doesn't know, that can't be a dream. Now I have Gatorade in my teeth. I can't win. If Lyanna's actually going to give him information that he doesn't know, that can't come from his subconscious. If she's going to be like, Jon, you're very special, prophecy, blah, blah, blah. Then she's got to have knowledge. That can't be from his subconscious. So you see the point. If she is lingering in the weirwood net in some sense, this is another reason for her to have become a Green Seer or something on the Isle of Faces. And so that is what we're talking about. She's warging my weirwood till I see green. I see. See what you did there. And the other thing I want to say is that there's no reason why she can't. Jon is a warg. And he is Lyanna's son. So, newsflash. Spoiler alert. All the Stark kids are wargs, and Jon's a warg. So what does that tell us? That tells us that at least the latent ability to become skin changers, and in Bran's case, a Green Seer, is lingering in the bloodline of the Starks. Okay, and there's a great quote about this, which I forgot to pull, but can quickly find, because I have a near encyclopedic knowledge of Song of Ice and Fire. We're going to look up Old Man's Arms. We're going to go to Dance with Dragons, and it's going to be a Bran chapter. Lord Eddard Stark sat upon a rock, and this is one of Bran's weirwood dreams. Beside the deep black pool in the Godswood, the pale roots of the heart tree twisting around him like an old man's gnarled arms. The great sword lay across Eddard's lap, and he was cleaning the blade with an oilcloth. So he's seeing a vision of Ned here, doing what Ned does, cleaning the sword, offering blood to the weirwood pond. But it's a little bit stylized. The roots of the heart tree are twisting around him like an old man's arms. So it's kind of poetic, and it depicts Eddard as a Green Seer, which he's not. But what is it kind of saying to you? The weirwood is like an old man whose arms are around the Stark family. Okay? Even if Eddard didn't manifest the gift, the Starks are caretakers and being caretaken by the weirwoods. And as soon as Bran comes to from this vision, it shows the weirwood throne cradling Bran like a mother does a child. So this language is echoed, where the weirwood old man arms are cradling Eddard. I always want to say Neddard. And then the weirwood is cradling Bran in the cave. And so what does this say? To me, it's like, yeah, the Starks carry this Green Seer bloodline. The weirwoods are looking after them. It runs through their whole family. And this we can see that because Jon is, again, a skin changer. Neddard. So that's kind of what we're going to... There's a lot more to it. We're going to get into some symbolism. We're going to talk about some of the logistics. But that is essentially the core of it. There's a reason for Lyanna to have been a Green Seer or a Green Dreamer or of some kind. Something that allows her to see the future and something that allows her to linger. Okay, and the other part of this, there's a really good comment from Pratt Sully on the RLJ video who said, did Ned promise to bring Lyanna's bones, I should say bones, to Winterfell because of this? Meaning, Lyanna didn't die in a weirwood throne. Her blood didn't go to a weirwood tree at the Tower of Joy. But perhaps the reason why it's so significant that it's like, oh, Ed buried everyone else there, and he didn't, but he brought back Lyanna's bones, and Barbie Dustin's all mad about it. And then he put her in the crypts. She's the only woman in the crypts. So no other Stark woman that we're told is in the crypt. She's not a King of Winter. Ned just put her in there because he loved her. Okay, it's cute. It's touching. But like, that's one of those things that could have significance. So maybe there's a magical reason, because the crypts of Winterfell, like the Isle of Faces or Bloodraven's Cave, are probably magically warded, almost certainly so. And so bringing her bones into the crypts might. Because the bones, remember, we see that. The whites are alive until their bones are broken. There is some power and knowledge in the bones themselves. So Lyanna's bones being returned to the crypts could have a magical implication, absolutely, according to what we know about Ice and Fire. And this could facilitate some sort of lingering of her ghost, of her presence, in order to contact Jon in the dreams. So, no, Jon has not seen Lyanna. This is something that needs to happen, Stephen. For many reasons. There's many reasons why people have theorized this. That's not my idea. That's a very old idea. I'm saying for the dream to be anything other than a manifestation of Jon's, and really Jon has never seen Lyanna. So how could he really dream of Lyanna? He can't. It would have to be Lyanna's actual ghost visiting Jon while he's dead. What's Alona asking? What did she do to be hated on? So the only reason people are hating on Lyanna is it's all part of the hating on Rhaegar. It's by extension, in my opinion. The Lyanna homewrecker stuff. Yeah, it's every once in a while one of those people rolls into the comments and I chuckle. Yeah, Lyanna Force Ghost. You got the idea. Exactly right. To be a Force Ghost, you need some Weirwood soul keeping for that to happen. Hey, what's up here with 1,000 Voices? I want to shout out here with 1,000 Voices and the new channel logo that you got. Check that out. It's real tiny here. But go over to his channel here with 1,000 Voices and subscribe if you haven't. He's got a new video out. And yeah, the artist, I forget the name of the artist, but you found an artist in our Discord to commission to draw you a logo, and it turned out great. And this just makes my heart go pitter-patter. Community building. So yeah, go subscribe to Hero with 1,000 Voices if you haven't already. Thanks for reminding me about that. Good to see you there. He's on the mend. He's a little bit under the weather, so otherwise he might have even joined me. Helena Targaryen, thank you. It was Helena Targaryen, the artist. Helena, known for her artwork. Obviously a user with the same name, but makes sense. She's an artist. And so the big question I got to and left off with in the RLJ Secret Wedding video was, what were they doing out there? Like I said, it could be some Rhaegar stuff, but it could be Lyanna-centric. And so the other idea besides her awakening magic would be that Jon potentially might have needed to be conceived on the Isle of Faces. I'm not sure if the timeline works out. They might have to really hurry to the Tower of Joy after that in order to make it all work. But that timeline is somewhat speculative. It is reconstructed from various piecemeal pieces of evidence. Yeah, so Lyanna had the potential to be a warg, but she had no familiar companion to jump into. Did the Tower of Joy have a heart tree? No. But the heart trees aren't local. And this is why I do favor the Green Seer more than the skin changer theory, because there aren't really wolves on the Isle of Faces. And this is something I jumped over. But the Starks, it's likely that they're all skin changers because they all got direwolves, and the direwolves are magical animals. Actually, I've got that in the outline. Let me pull it up here. Yeah, so Children of the Forest say to Bran, "The giants are almost gone as well, they who are our bane and our brothers. The great lions of the western hills have been slain, the unicorns are all but gone, the mammoths down to a few hundred. The dire wolves will outlast us all, but their time will come as well. In the world that men have made, there is no room for them or us." So this is sort of, it's not clear, this is an implication, but listen to the animals that are listed off. The great lions of the western hills, the unicorns, the mammoths, and the dire wolves. So these are all potentially magical animals. We do know, and ravens are the other ones, right? But like, it does seem like the ancient Lannisters and Casterlys may have been skin changing those lions. And the unicorns obviously seem magical. We should wonder about skin changing mammoths. I've never thought about that. But yeah, this is just a line that implies the dire wolves are magical. But the thing is, we know that because the direwolves are telepathic. It's not just the Stark kids that are doing the telepathy with the wolves. The wolves can see each other. We see that with Jon and Bran. They can see Shaggy Dog. They see glimpses of each other. All the wolves are psychically connected. That's why I've talked about Direwolf Net before, right? That's just the psychic network of the wolves. But it seems like that the wargs using the wolves can tap into that. But really, I think this is more about skin changer stuff, because on the Isle of Faces, again, there's not wolves. There are no wolves. However, there are lots of weirwoods, and they're special weirwoods. They have faces that aren't bloody. They have green leaves, and there's a bunch of green men hanging around them. So it seems to me like the Green Seer gift could have been awakened by that. Look for Alec, a.k.a. King of the North, a.k.a. We could put an extra K in there. I had a theory that the reason Ned brought Lady's wolf pelt home out of duty was a parallel to Lyanna's remains being brought home. Lyanna's wolf pelt. What do you mean Lyanna's wolf pelt? Oh, Lady's wolf pelt. Oh, sorry. I misread that. Out of duty was a parallel. Yeah, it is a parallel. That is a good parallel, I guess. And that, I mean, it's just the Starks are symbolic wolves anyway. I don't know if it's evidence to my theory, but that is definitely a parallel. Let's see. And yeah, there is sort of hints of Sansa hearing Lady's ghostly voice on the wind. The green men are the green trees on the Isle of Faces, a reservoir just before the corruption. Well, it could be, but we do have that artwork from the Isle of Faces that does show actual weirwoods there. So I think there are probably green men and weirwoods on the Isle of Faces. Now, Jon is a skin changer, like I said. Brandon and Lyanna are said to have the wolf blood, right? Now, that mostly refers to them being just kind of hot-tempered and bold and courageous or whatever. Got them both killed. But maybe that's sort of also an allusion by the author to this magical bloodline of the Starks, the wolf blood. They do have the skin changer gene in their bloodline, right? And so it's another kind of way of saying, no, Brandon and Lyanna had it too. They just didn't have a wolf to activate it. Now, Bran, interestingly, I'm saying, well, maybe Lyanna maybe her gifts were awakened by all these weirwoods on the Isle of Faces. And so, well, why wasn't it awakened by the Heart Tree in Winterfell? Well, look at the example of Bran. Bloodraven has to reach out to him during his coma dream in order to contact him and begin opening his third eye. And then after that, Bloodraven can contact him more easily, and he begins to have wolf dreams, and he begins to slip Summer's skin and stuff like that, right? And it seems like Bran does the same thing for Jon. Jon sees a vision of the weirwood tree with Bran's face, and the branch reaches out and boops Jon on the forehead. And then that's Jon's first wolf dream. He pops into Ghost and sees out of Ghost's eyes. So Bran has his first awakening from Bloodraven. But I do think that the implication is that Bloodraven is using the Winterfell Heart Tree to reach out to Bran. Because in Bran's weirwood dreams, he sees the Heart Tree looking at him knowingly. So it's like the Heart Tree, the weirwood net, is present in the vision, looking at Bran. See what I mean? So it's like, that implies that the weirwood net is there too. That Bloodraven, of course, is using the weirwood net to reach out to Bran. But then Bran still needs to go up to Bloodraven's cave in order to be fully awakened and eat the weirwood paste and bond to the tree. So it could be a similar thing, where Lyanna could have had an initial dream or vision before she went to the tourney, or while she's at the tourney, where Bloodraven is reaching out through the weirwoods at Harrenhal or Winterfell and beginning to contact Lyanna and giving her the idea of going to the Isle of Faces. And then Howland shows up, says, yeah, we got to go. Maybe the Ghost of Highheart's there too, like I said. And so now once she's on the Isle of Faces, she can eat some weirwood paste. If it needs brains, then we can sacrifice a green man, whatever it is. And then Lyanna can awaken her gift on the Isle of Faces and see the future and understand what she needs to do. So be a pretty good parallel to Bran's course of action. So here's and then of course I've talked about, so I'll go fast with this, but the centaur thing, right? Brandon and Lyanna are said to be, I forget the line, half centaur, part centaur, whatever. That's the joke. We're all half centaur because the centaur is half human. The point is, they are just amazing horse riders. And there is reason to think that horses would potentially make a good animal to skin change because they're intelligent. And we see that they're compatible with humans. Anybody that has a close bond with their horse and you hear him talk about it, not me, but you hear him talk about it, and it's a very close bond. I mean, they're racing together, and you have to have a complete physical connection between the rider and the horse, and they spend a lot of time together. So, yeah, it makes sense. And in fact, if you go back to the Dothraki Sea, there is evidence, and this is, again, I'm going to do the short version, but there is evidence that the ancient Dothraki were skin-changing horses. And I'm going to do an Origins of the Dothraki produced video soon, so I don't want to spoil it too much. But we know that there are children of the forest-like beings in the forest just north of the Dothraki Sea called the Ifukevron. And the forest is called the Forest of the Ifukevron. They're also called the Woods Walkers. And there's carved faces, and they're either children of the forest or some variant. Some cousin species may as well be, for all intents and purposes. The Dothraki revere them. And the Dothraki went to war against the hairy men because they wiped out the Ifukevron, supposedly. So, the Dothraki have this ancient reverence for children of the forest. That's one piece of the puzzle. Next piece. The Dothraki share their wives sometimes, but never their horses. And this is behavior that could be a leftover tradition from skin changing, because of course the skin changer bond is for life, and you don't have the sharing of animals. We've seen Varamir Sixskins steal an animal from his master Hagon when he killed him. But you don't just trade animals. That's a life bond. So that Dothraki custom could be left over from that. The Starks fell off over the centuries, but House Reed kept up with their Green Seer abilities. Yes, that is true, Kelly Johnson. Seemingly, as far as more conscious of the traditions, but the blood is still strong in the Starks, as we see. Thank you for your super chat. So, Mirri Maz Duur, when she does her botched resurrection for Drogo, is essentially doing what looks like a skin changer resurrection ceremony. She kills Drogo's horse, which would be his skin changer animal, his familiar, and then she says, "Strength of the mount, go into the rider." So imagine it's Jon and Ghost. Imagine Jon is dead, Ghost is alive, and Melisandre's, just brace yourself here, cutting the throat of the wolf and saying, "Strength of the wolf, go into the man." Well, it's really a spirit of Jon and Ghost that's in the wolf needs to go into the man. And this is why I say don't be too sad, because Ghost, the wolf spirit, is going to go into Jon's body. This is old stuff. Yeah, I know. There's always a couple people hearing it for the first time, but it is foreshadowed. Jon is like Mithras, and Mithras has to slay the white bull, which is his companion, to be reborn. And there was a white bull, Gerald Hightower, that was slain at Jon's birth. And so there will be a white wolf that will die at Jon's rebirth. But again, Ghost the wolf and Jon the spirit will have merged. And so it will be both spirits that will be going back into Jon. This is my theory. This is actually not my theory. It predates me. I just found more evidence for it. And so I'm pretty sure it is going to happen. But the point is, it goes just like this. So if Drogo had been a skin changer, his spirit would have muted. Yeah, I know, sorry. If Drogo had been a skin changer, his spirit would have been in his horse. And so when Mirri Maz Duur sacrifices the horse, if she's doing the right magic, she can port the spirits back into the man. And so it didn't really work because Drogo wasn't a skin changer. I'm just trying to brace you. I'm trying to prepare you. So Jon is going to be the wolf man. Yeah, it's going to be pretty gnarly and weird. He's going to be a man wolf inside of a person's body. It's going to be kind of nuts. That's the whole thing. the wolf is named Ghost because it's going to merge with Jon's ghost. It represents Jon's ghost, and Jon will become Ghost. So, and then that ghost is going to go back into his body. Yeah. So, can Dany warg because of her Blackwood blood? No. But she might go into the Weirwood net at the end of this, Kelly Johnson, as you know, I believe. And I actually am going to talk about that a little bit. So Mir Mazdor is essentially pulling a botched skin changer ritual on Drogo, knowing that it won't work and will leave him a vegetable because he's not really in his horse. And she's even using a curved sickle blade, just like Bran's vision of the Weirwood sacrifice scene, where it's a curved bronze blade with runes. Both the blades, I believe, have runes. So it seems like a very intentional parallel. It's just that Drogo's not a skin changer anymore. It's the blood is thinned in the Dothraki, but I do think that is foreshadowing for Jon's resurrection. Both Drogo and Mir Mazdor there, and Drogo's pyre. I did a whole video called Jon Snow's pyre, and I believe that his pyre will mimic Drogo's. And again, the horse is put on the pyre with the body. They're both burned. And then Dany sees a vision of Drogo riding the smoky stallion up to the stars. That represents the resurrection. So Jon will be resurrected out of this pyre as the Wolfman. That's why it's important that we see Melisandre can call Ghost to her. And then their eyes are like burning with fire. It's foreshadowing. It's all there. So this is evidence that the Dothraki potentially used to be skin changers. And what does that mean? It means that this whole bit about Brandon and Lyanna being half centaur could be, again, to help us tie them into the skin changing tradition. Like, they're such good horse riders because their skin changer gifts are like trying to activate, but they don't quite. They're not awakened. Nobody booped them on the forehead. I was also wondering, were other magical horses? Did the ancient Dothraki have like a specific breed of horse that was more like the direwolves or the ravens? How many viewers did we lose with that ghost stuff? Sorry, I'm sorry. Let's see here. So, oh God. No, I didn't talk about Warg Kings. Yeah, I skipped over Warg Kings. Thank God. Not time for Nissa yet. It's becoming a bad joke. David Lightbringer always talks about the Weirwood net. So Warg Kings. Warg Kings are a thing. Why do you think all of these King of Winter statues have wolves? Because the Starks have always been skin changers. That's the obvious answer. And that's probably how they conquered the entire North and maintained control of the North for so long, because they are Warg Kings going back to days of yore. Now, Varamir, and there's evidence for this I'll show you in a second. Varamir's six skin shows us the crappiest. He's like a Warg Baron, a Warg Governor, and a lousy one at that. But he shows you that, like, if you have even a little bit of skin changer power, you have the ability to make yourself a warlord. You can take women from the villages, and when their angry brothers and fathers and sons come, you just have your shadow cat or your wolf drive them off or eat them. So he lives like a little petty tyrant. He just doesn't have much ambition, and he's got no leadership ability. So all he does is satiate his own desires. But he's a petty tyrant, and he's just showing you, if a more powerful person, decided to set them up as a king, they would be kind of terrifying. And this is, in fact, the evidence that we see. There's something that we read about called the War for Sea Dragon Point, where the ancient kings of winter went to war with someone called the Warg King. And the Warg King went to war with his beasts and Green Seers. So multiple Green Seers and Wargs going to war with the Starks. And the Starks won. So how do you think they did that? Because they were Green Seers and Wargs themselves. That's how. It's the only answer. And there's another war called the War of the Wolves. Right? Yeah, it's what plants need. It's got electrolytes. Enough said. War of the Wolves. Gavin Greywolf. He was killed with all his kin by a Stark King of Winter during the Savage War of the Wolves. So what is that? It sounds like another war of skin changers. A powerful Warg King somewhere else in the north that the Starks went to war with and defeated because they were the stronger wargs. So you start to see this ancient picture of Westeros. Like, anybody who was a skin changer or a Greenseer could potentially set themselves up as a ruler of people and as the leader of a clan. And that seems, the Marsh King, same thing with the original leader of the Crannog Men. He was riding on lizard lions and doing other kinds of magic. I think the war for Sea Dragon Point was the war for the wolves. I'm not sure. It's not from Bran. This is from the World of Ice and Fire. Correct me if I'm wrong, Sean. But whether they're confused or not, my only point is just that it was happening. And George, he always intends this stuff to be murky. Like anytime we're doing King of Winter, that's a long time ago, right? This is very long, potentially Age of Heroes and stuff. So that's it. The Starks, their tradition is very strong. And that is why the gift is so strong that when they're given direwolves, they all just turn into wargs. The gifts start manifesting. We don't know if Bloodraven has to boop everybody. We know Bloodraven booped Jon. And we know Bloodraven booped Bran, and Bran booped Jon. And I think Bran will end up booping Sansa so that she can skin change birds. Arya never really had a booping, did she? She has been, her first skin changing does she skin change Nymeria? Well, in her dreams, yes. She begins skin changing Nymeria in her dreams at Harrenhal, in fact. So we're in her POV. She is spending time in the Godswood and hearing the voices of like her father and other things on the wind. So it could be that is a booping scene. That might be a good scene, a chapter to reread sometime soon. Yeah, she skin changes a cat over in Bravos, and she continues to skin change her wolf and lead the wolf pack in Bravos as well. So her booping could be in Bravos. That could be Northern Tommy when she was blind. The sense depravity sort of awakens her. She's also around a lot of weirwood. She did not warg a cat at Harrenhal, I don't think. No, she did not warg a cat at Harrenhal. And her wolf dreams are at night, and this is sort of an unconscious thing. When she skin changes the cat, that's the first time she does it during the day, which is the active, intentional use of it. When she dreams, she begins to. It's not even spelled out. It's like she has these dreams of. It's when they first escape Harrenhal, and there's people on their trail, and they're worried about them following. And then when they're sleeping, Arya has these bloody dreams, and then they're not being followed anymore. So that was the first time. But okay, so this is all just to establish how strong the gift is in the Stark bloodline. All 6 kids had it, and these are 5 of Ned's kids and 1 of Lyanna's kids, all skin changers, and Bran's a Green Seer. Okay, so there's no doubt that it is latent in Lyanna's blood. No doubt. So there's absolutely no reason to be like super skeptical that Lyanna could have been a Green Seer or a skin changer. Maybe you're skeptical because like we're told it's very rare, but like that doesn't line up. Like, oh, only 1 in 1,000 is born a skin changer. Well, no, it was 6 out of 6. So maybe compared to all the children born in the North, those 6 versus everybody else or whatever. But this is why I did this section. The Stark bloodline is very strong with this stuff. So, moving on, we got to talk about Nissa. And maybe this is a good time to take a quick break. I'm going to go check for birdseed. I'm still thinking about it. All right. I'll be right back. Let me give you all some Rhaegar. Reading Rhaegar. And, oh, it's dark. Where am I? We're in the dark. Oh, here we are. Okay. Brush my teeth just for kicks. Anyway, now that we're past that. Okay, so let's see here. Nissa was an elf. Okay, so this is the confusing thing about this. I'm about to show you a bunch of symbolism that suggests that Lyanna is a Greenseer. It's going to really look like that. And especially if you don't know anything about Nissa, it's going to be very convincing. However, there is a phenomenon, and if you're new to the channel, by the way, welcome. There are some people who have been joining the channel lately because of House of the Dragon and various things who are just getting their feet wet with all of this stuff. So if you're new, welcome. I will try to ease you into this. I'm not going to be able to give you all the evidence for everything that I'm saying, but I will at least explain how I see it and give you some of the evidence so that it makes sense. George Martin is doing a thing with parallelism and characters. He's created these characters such as Azor Ahai and Nissa, Lan the Clever, Night's King, Night's Queen, Garth the Green. These are kind of the main ones. Grey King. And then he has, thank you, Mickey, I appreciate it. Then he has the characters in the current story parallel these ancient characters. And by creating this parallelism, he's essentially, what he's doing is making his own archetypes. And so it turns out that Garth the Green is not only an ancient mythical figure, but an archetype. And we see King Robert and is a version of it. And even Aegon the Unworthy is a version of it. He's the more corrupt gluttonous. Robert is growing corrupt. Renly is more of the young Green King. So we see these different versions of Garth the Green, right? And we see all the Lannisters doing all this clever, tricksy stuff that is echoing Lan the Clever in different ways and offering commentary. And with the female archetypes, it's mostly Nissa and Night's Queen, showing these sort of opposite archetypes. Melisandre, and the Nissas generally, we see these fiery women like Melisandre, Cat, Sansa, Daenerys. And then we see cold or women with death symbolism that are more Night's Queen-like. And so this is a way of informing us about the ancient mysteries. We can begin to learn about Azor Ahai and Nissa, Night's Queen, solve the mysteries of the past, because our characters of the present are needing to sort of fix the problems that the ancient characters caused. Just like any good fantasy story, right? There's an ancient sin and it's got to be atoned for. What are the others pissed off about? Why is the weird net messed up? Why do we have dragons and others seemingly on this collision course? All the stuff's got to be resolved, right? And so George is having fun by creating his own archetypes. Then he's creating these the modern characters as parallels. So we see all these flaming sword people: Beric, Stannis, Jon, Jaime in his dream, even the Targaryens who just have dragon swords. Brienne has a dragon sword that's dyed red, and in Jaime's dream she has a flaming sword. So all of these characters that have flaming swords, we should be I wonder if they're an Azor Ahai parallel. And the answer is yes. And they tell us things about it. So one thing I noticed with all the Azor Ahai characters is that they all have symbolism that suggests they're tree people or green seers or stag men with antlers. And so for example, Stannis, his whole sigil, right? It's like the burning heart. It's like a stag on fire inside of a heart. So the stag is a heart, H-A-R-T. And then there's a H-E-A-R-T heart. So it's a double heart. Also heart trees, right? Heart trees, another heart layer of symbolism. But he's this burning stag man, which is the same thing as a burning tree. But he's also Azor Ahai. Then look at Beric. He's got R'hllor magic, fire magic, and a burning sword, but he lives in a weirwood cave. So living in a weirwood cave is similar to having antlers on your head, because the antlers represent the tree branches. Bran has antlers on his head in that he puts on the tree as a skin. He wears the tree. He looks out the eyes of the tree. And so he has branches on his head, and those are like antlers. And that's the point of the green men being associated with the weirwood trees. So all of this stuff, as I looked at these Azor Ahai parallels, I began to see this idea that, he's interacting with the weirwoods. Beric dies and then lives in a weirwood cave. So maybe Azor Ahai, resurrects in the weirwood net, or his spirit goes in there or something. Jon is an Azor Ahai character, and he's a warg. Not only is he a warg, but when he dies, his spirit is going to go into his wolf. I think it happened already. It's either it happened 13 years ago or it's been happening for 13 years. I'm not sure how you want to say it. But in the moment he was dying, he was going into his wolf. His wolf looks like a weirwood tree. So once again, you have Jon, who dreams of wielding a burning sword and is part of the prince that was promised, Azor Ahai Reborn prophecy. And when he's dead, he's going into a werewolf, a weirwood symbol, his wolf. Beric is in a weirwood cave. You see what I'm saying? So when we go over to Nissa, and we look at all the characters that are parallel to Nissa, we see weirwood symbolism. Oh, battery 1 is gone. But fear not. Who does number 2 work for? Works for me. Oh, we're back to green again. Let's go back to, the green backlight is unpleasant. It's better to do blue or purple. With the green glasses. There we go. Okay. And so. What is this guy talking about? I know. You might be talking about someone in the chat, but it could apply to me as well. So I'm explaining character archetypes and parallels. Hopefully that is coming across well. And so we're about to talk about. Not you, Dave. I figured Lyanna. It's okay. It's always good for me to sort of circle back. Like, what are we talking about? We're talking about Nissa. Nissa was an elf. So, first of all, the Nissa, I think it's Nissa or Nissa. There's an at the end of it. Somebody explained to me how to pronounce it. It's something like Nissa or Nissa. This is a folkloric belief from Scandinavia. The Nissa they're the little elf people. And you got to leave offerings out for them, and they habit farms and hills and things like that. And it's standard fairy folklore. Nissa, yeah, thank you. And the point is that they are little elves. They remind you of the children of the forest. They're associated with sacred locations, and just like any fairy creature, you either please them and then they bless you, or you piss them off and they make your life hell, and they can kill your livestock and all stuff like that. Like, they're actually something to fear. So Nissa, the name, flat out suggests that she's an elf woman. But then you go and look at all of these Nissa parallel characters, and they're all there. It's all there. So the other part of this idea is that Azor Ahai invading the weirwood net, part of that is that when he kills Nissa, if she is a weirwood woman, a child of the forest, then this could be a way of forcing yourself into the weirwood net, which I believe is the whole thing. Azor Ahai doesn't have this connection. He sacrifices Nissa in an act of blood magic, and that's how he gets in. But that is my theory. So let's talk about the parallel characters. The different ways the Nissa characters are spelled out as being weirwood women or children of the forest. There's different ways to do it. So some of them are directly associated with weirwoods. Some of them are children, like Arya is a child. Lyanna is called a child woman, which just means teenager, essentially. But when you say child woman, it's like a woman of the children of the forest. It's a way to imply that. And of course, the children of the forest look like Arya. There's going to be a lot of Arya-Lyanna parallels. Part of this is looking at the Lyanna-Arya parallels and seeing what that tells us about magic. So it's more of that coming. Now, of course, the weirwood trees are based on the Norse magic tree, Yggdrasil, which is an ash tree. And so George is using ash trees in Ice and Fire as stand-ins for weirwood trees. And this is also complementary to the idea of the burning bush or the burning tree. So the weirwood leaves are usually bloody hands, but they also are described as looking like a blaze of flame because they're fiery red. And so that makes the tree look like a burning tree. That makes us think of Moses' burning bush. And the burning bush, what does it do? It speaks with the voice of God. What do the weirwoods do? It's the voice of the old God. So it's a good parallel. And then we have that Grey King myth where it sounds like a weirwood is involved, and he taunts the storm god. Storm god lashes down with a thunderbolt, sets a tree ablaze. And this is how Grey King possesses the fire of the gods and gives it to mankind. Well, that sounds like he's a Green Seer, or the first Green Seer, or something, who is modifying the Weirwood Net so that other people can access this fire of the gods. And that's what I think Azor Ahai did. Yes, they're blood red, but Theon also describes them as a blaze of flame. And blood and fire are used as synonyms. When, like the comet, it's blood red, fire red. It's the same red. So because Yggdrasil is an ash tree, and because George likes to work with the weirwood as a symbolic burning tree that has the fire of the gods, like Moses' burning bush, or like, the torch of Prometheus or whatever, same idea. You see the ash tree used in this way. So Beric, when he's resurrected the first time, it's in a grove of ash trees. Now, Jon, Azor Ahai, they're going to be resurrected. So Jon's going to be resurrected from a weirwood-colored wolf. And the original Azor Ahai is resurrected from the weirwood net. So Beric, in this parallel, is resurrected in a grove of ash, which is ash trees. But it is just another way of saying weirwood net. And then he goes and lives in the weirwood cave, so it's complementary symbolism. So we see a lot of these women are associated with ash trees. You see this line says ash maiden. So there's Asha Greyjoy. There's Ashes. There's literally a child of the forest named, not named, Bran names her Ashes. But, and then there is, there's 6 children of the forest in the cave. There are 6 spear wives sent to Winterfell with Mance Rayder. And one of their names is Rowan. And a rowan tree is called a mountain ash. Even though it's not related, it is called a mountain ash. And the rowan is also another tree associated with a lot of old European folklore. It's got red berries as well, so it kind of reminds you of the weirwood red leaves. By the way, I have an old podcast called Venus of the Woods. It's actually called, it's called The Weirwood Goddess. It's a 3-parter, and the first part is Venus of the Woods. There's an episode all about Arya. There's no visuals, it's just audio, but I do recommend it if you like this. If you need more like feminine symbolism and sacred tree symbolism and Nissa stuff, like I went into this in detail in those. I pulled up all the scenes and highlighted the text. You know how I do it, so. Ash Maidens continue on with Ashara Dane, who leaps from a tower, which is like a tree, and leaps into the sea. We're going to talk about the sea symbolism. Ygritte is an Ash Maiden because she is a spear wife and also dissolves into the weirwood tree. We'll talk about that. And then she also has the kissed by fire hair. So that's the same fiery hair as the weirwood canopy. Then we have, let's see. Ashara. Oh, Dany. Dany is reborn from the ashes when she wakes the dragon. She's covered in ash. The word is used at least twice in the scene. So she is reborn from the ashes, just like Beric. So this is the whole thing. Melisandre talks about Azor Ahai as an ember in the ashes that will spark a great blaze. That's just a way of saying Azor Ahai is a little spark of fire in the great ash tree of the weirwood net. And his return will spark a great blaze. It's very Phoenix-like, Erica, yes. I sometimes forget to mention the Phoenix symbolism, but yes, Azor Ahai Reborn is very much like a phoenix. The podcast is on my YouTube channel. It's in the podcast feed as well, but you can find it in a playlist called The Weirwood Goddess. So, recommended listening. So these are ash tree maidens. We see weirwood women. Oh, cat-eyed women. Let's go back. So the children of the forest have cat eyes. They've got the slitted pupils like a cat. So then we see Cersei. She's a lioness. So she's a cat woman with cat eyes, lioness's eyes. Then there's Catelyn, who has cat's eyes because she's cat. And then there's even a line where George is like, oh, Sansa has Peter look at Sansa and be like, oh, you have cat's eyes. Meaning like you have your mother's eyes, but it's also spelling out cat's eyes because Sansa does tons of Nissa stuff too. And then Arya, She gets the name Cat of the Canals in Bravos and sees out of a cat's eyes when she skin changes the cat. And so it's all cat's eyes. All this stuff is to tell you that Nissa was a cat woman. She was a child of the forest. That's the point. Then we see a lot of Nissa characters who are associated with weirwoods. So Catelyn, in the very first scene, we see her sitting in front of the weirwood. She also looks like a weirwood because she has the white skin and the red hair. And then there's also the weirwood stigmata symbolism, which I've talked about many times. Hopefully you're familiar, but basically a lot of times when people are doing symbolic weirwood deaths, they manifest physical features in blood that make them look like weirwood trees. So the weirwood trees have leaves like bloody hands. So Cat at the Red Wedding gets bloody hands. She gets a bloody mouth, just like the weirwoods have a bloody mouth. She carves her face with her nails, and those carvings bleed. So she has a bloody carved face like a weirwood, and her hair also bleeds when someone grabs it and there's blood on her scalp. So she's basically turning into a weirwood tree when she's dying. There's more, but I'll come back to it. And we see when Varamir Sixskins tries to steal the body of Thistle, she does the same thing. Bites her tongue, bloody mouth, claws at her face, bloody eyes, same thing, bloody tears. Cat has the red tears as well. So they're turning into weirwoods. And Varamir, as soon as he bounces from Thistle, bounces into a weirwood tree just to double up the symbolism. So Thistle is another Nissa character getting murdered by an evil magician. So Varamir's like Azor Ahai, and he does invade the weirwood tree by killing Thistle. So it's a perfect mock-up of kind of what I'm talking about. Thistle's Nissa. Her death is opening the door to the weirwood net for Azor Ahai, and that's why there's all that weirwood door symbolism. So Lady Stoneheart, right, that's the other part. Catelyn turns into Lady Stoneheart, lives in a weirwood cave as a dead spirit thing. So, like, is Nissa, is she dead inside the weirwood net? Could be. That's kind of what Stoneheart is showing us. So, yeah, thank you for... And there's more with Stoneheart, too. But so other weirwood women, Lyanna is, of course, we're going to talk about this, but she dresses up as the Knight of the Laughing Tree with a weirwood shield and then goes to the Isle of Faces. So there's weirwood associations, and we're going to go into that in more detail, but it's there, basically. Arya, same thing. She goes into the God's Wood and practices with her wooden sword. Then Jake and Hagar steps out from behind a weirwood tree, looking like a weirwood tree, with the red hair and the white, very pale skin. And then they both become weirwood assassins. They're ghosts in Harrenhal, and they go out of the God's Wood and kill a bunch of people. So then this is the same thing sort of with Lyanna. She turns into the Knight of the Laughing Tree, and now she's an instrument of the old gods, serving up vengeance and justice. And yes, Nissa was hot. She was a hot elf. I have art. I will show you. I've got two official ones, anyway. This one is by Alanis Morissette. Nissa, Our Lady of Sorrows. Vaguely Catholic inspired. You can see that she is an elf woman with Valerian hair. The moon is cracking. Lightbringers, light bringing. Four-fingered clawed hands. Weirwood leaves. Good stuff. And then we've got this one, which is by Rhodora Jacob. I don't know if she listens to my podcast or not, but this is kind of, it's labeled Mother of Dragons. So it's kind of, I guess it's meant to be elf Dany, but it's essentially, that's what, this is the concept. And of course, a lot of fantasy elves do have silver hair, so that's kind of what you should imagine, I guess. So I don't know if you think that's hot, I guess, depends on what you're into, but sure. They do have a tarot card look, both of them, yeah. So, yes, Sansa's, she's a wonderful Nissa character. When she goes through her killing the sun routine with Joffrey, turning his face purple, she flees through the God's Wood and changes her clothes. And she even grabs her new clothes out of the tree branches and puts them on, and then crosses the sea, is abducted by the Merlin King, and ends up in a cold world. Because, spoiler alert, a lot of these Nissa women look like they turn into Night's Queen. Stoneheart becomes a corpse queen, right? Sansa goes, she becomes corpse-like. She thinks that she's dead. She looks at the God's Wood without gods and thinks it's just like her, empty. But she's actually the goddess in the God's Wood. So yeah, she's in an ice castle. She's imprisoned. So there's always been a lot of clues that Nissa's spirit is imprisoned in the Weirwood Net. And the parallel may be that Lyanna's spirit is lurking in the crypts of Winterfell. That's kind of the idea here. So let me pause and say the big picture thing. Which is that the challenge here is that because Nissa seems to have been a child of the forest and a Weirwood woman, and there's more evidence, but you're starting to see the picture, all the Nissa characters have these Weirwood and skin changer symbolism. They're child of the forest symbolism. However, Kat's not a child of the forest. She doesn't skin change anyone. Neither do a lot of these characters. Cersei doesn't. Sansa actually never does. I think she will, but she has the ability. Val's a mystery. Ygritte doesn't. Rowan doesn't. So a lot of these characters are just parallels. And Melisandre is another Nissa character. She does sorcery, but not skin changing. Although she does sort of influence ghosts, so... And she's part Blackwood, potentially. So actually, I shouldn't say that. But you see what I'm saying. The parallelism makes it murky. I can show you a bunch of Weirwood stuff associated with Lyanna, but that doesn't necessarily mean that she's a Greenseer. It could be clues about Nissa going into the Weirwood Net, which she definitely did, in my opinion. However, when we look at these clues about Lyanna, it does kind of make me wonder if they're meant to make us think that this is what's going on, that her spirit is lingering because of Weirwood magic. So another way that Nissa characters are described as going into the Weirwood Net is through the mermaid and the green sea symbolism. Shout out to Ravenous Reader, of course, my friend, Ravenous Reader, who had the brilliant insight that George is using bodies of water to represent the astral plane of the Greenseers. So the Greenseers swim in the Green Sea. Get it? That's the joke. But it works because mankind has always associated the ocean with the unknown and the astral plane and the place where you go when you dream at night, the void, all those kind of concepts, the womb tomb, the darkness, whether it's the ocean of space, the ocean of chaos, or the sea itself that is terrifying. It's so scary. I just look at pictures of the Pacific Ocean and it scares me. I don't want to even see it. In any case. So it works really well for the Greenseers. Also, it complements the River of Time symbolism, right? The Weirwoods are straddling the River of Time, but they're not moved by it. They're plucking the Greenseers out of the River of Time so they're not trapped in its flow and they can see the whole timeline. So the Green Sea symbolism is really brilliant. It's a way for George to tell us about the Weirwood Net using the Squishers. So the Squishers are like the others. They are pale white monsters that come from the sea. The others are white monsters that come from the Weirwood Net, the Green Sea. Only it's like a frozen lake for them. But yeah. So it's all this parallel. And here's where it matters. Many of the Nissa women are mermaids or they go into the sea when they die. So we just mentioned Catelyn. She does this thing where she turns into a weirwood tree, kind of, when she's being killed. Then what do? In a mockery of the Tully funeral rites, the phrase, throw her into the green fork of the trident. The green fork. So a body of water labeled as green, literally into the green sea. Then she goes and lives in a weirwood cave. So all the symbolism is saying the same thing. Living in the Green Sea. Also, she was pulled out of the Green Sea by a wolf. That's interesting. And then she's living in a weirwood cave. So this is all telling us about, presumably, Nissa and Night's Queen being these weirwood associated women that are going into the weirwood net and coming out of the weirwood net. We don't know if Night's King and Night's Queen's encounter was on the ethereal plane or was it in the physical realm. Can Corpse Queen manifest physically and go back in the weirwood net? These are all possibilities. We don't know. But Catelyn is thrown into the Green Fork. And also the trident. The trident is the weapon of the sea god Poseidon. So it's a magical weapon. So it's a green sea that is associated with the gods and magic. It's very good. Then we have Lyanna. She disappears by the god's eye. So it's not quite as direct, but it's the god's eye obviously is a literal depiction of a body of water associated with the weirwoods. And so like when Daemon and Aemond and other people are going into the lake, that's the same as that's Azor Ahai going into the weirwood net too. So Daenerys is a really important mermaid. She's doing all this stuff on the green Dothraki Sea. It's called a sea, it's called green, but it's made of plants. Just like the weirwood net Green Sea is made of trees, right? And she does her death and rebirth on the Dothraki Sea. She wakes her dragons from the sea. She becomes a goddess on the sea. And she rides around this Green Sea on a seahorse. It's a horse the color of a winter sea. So it's this great layered symbolism. But yeah, Dany is riding a seahorse around the sea because that's Nissa's realm. She's the ruler of the sea. Once she goes in there, she takes to it quickly and she becomes the Khaleesi of the grass sea. Okay? There's even parallels with Dany going to the island, or the little mountain that's like an island in the sea that Drogon lives on. Could be a thing about Lyanna going there with a dragon, Rhaegar, right? Seems like a parallel. So let's see, Catelyn, Stoneheart, Arya goes across the sea and then becomes Cat of the Canals. So it's like she's the Catwoman of the canals. The canal water is green, by the way. The canals makes a great metaphor for the weirwood net because it's like a route network that people travel around. They got the boats navigating the river of time. So it really works well. It's the weir web. It's a web of canals. We also see the canals in The Sworn Sword. If you remember that book, Dunk and Egg part, the second one, where they're fighting over the dam, which is a weir, and they're making canals off of the river. So same thing, to irrigate the fields. So Cat of the Canals. Ashara Dane leaps into the sea, dies in the sea, leaps from a tower, which is like a tree. Then we have Ygritte. This one is great. I'm going to go ahead and pull this quote. Ygritte, blood and bone. So this is Jon's dream, one of his dreams. No, it didn't pull it up. Let's see. Let's try Ygritte Heart Tree. Encyclopedic knowledge, like I said. Oh, come on. Let's try Ygritte Pond. You know nothing, blood. That should pull it up. There we go. Finally. When the dreams took him, he found himself back at home once more, splashing in the hot pools beneath a huge white weirwood. Oh, not heart tree, weirwood. That had his father's face. Ygritte was with him, laughing at him, shedding her skins till she was naked as her name day. And that's more Nissa skin changer clues. But he couldn't, not with his father watching. He was the blood of Winterfell, a man of the Night's Watch. I will not father a bastard, he told her. I will not. You know nothing, Jon Snow, she whispered, her skin dissolving in the hot water, the flesh sloughing off her bones, until only skull and skeleton remained. The pool bubbled thick and red. Oh, I see. It doesn't say blood and bone. But yeah, you can see her skull and skeleton, so bone, and the pool's bubbling thick and red, so blood and bone. Those are the colors of the heart tree. Blood and bone. And so she is not only dissolving into the pond of the weirwood tree, which we know feeds the weirwood tree, she's turning into the colors of the heart tree, blood and bone. And so we figured out at some point, I forget who did this, I don't think it was me, Ygritte's name is actually Ygritte. Ygritte, as in Yggdrasil, a magical rite performed with Yggdrasil. That's what the Azor Ahai Nissa murder is. It's a magical rite so that Azor Ahai can get into the weirwood tree. So we see this rite here. We see Nissa dying, Ygritte, Nissa dying, and she is merging into the weirwood net in her death. And that is exactly the idea. So that is also going into the sea. She's becoming the sea, but she's turning the pond to blood. So it's altering the weirwood net. So with that established, that Nissa may be some sort of, yeah, the Ygritte, that's a good one, isn't it? And of course, again, she looks like a weirwood tree kissed by fire. And again, think of the Grey King myth. The tree is struck by the lightning bolt of the storm god, so it's kissed by fire too. And then when it turns into the burning tree, now Grey King can access its fire and share it with mankind. Prometheus-like. So it's very important, the kissed by fire thing. It's touched by the magic of the gods, Lightbringer, etc. Okay, so let's see here. Yeah, let me hit the music real quick. I just need about 30 seconds to give me a good throat clearing. And we'll do the other music. And we're back. All right, hope you enjoyed the music. Nice to bring back the old ones once in a while. Sorry I can't play the Monty Python anymore. That costs money. So making my own music instead. I make music. Might as well use it. So where are we? Nissa. By the way, Nissa may have been a Stark. I think she was. Maybe a good time to throw that out. Not only are a lot of these Nissa characters weirwood women, a lot of them are Starks. You see that. There is Sansa and Arya, Kat is a Stark, Lyanna, and then we see other people, honorary Starks. Val was almost married to Jon when Jon would have been legitimized by Stannis, so that would have been Jon and Val Stark. Jon Valjean, shout out. Then we have, let's see. There are others, but I'm not going to. I think Visenya's visage is described as her features are stark, if I'm not mistaken. But that's beside the point. I do think Nissa might have been a Stark, or like part of the Stark bloodline. She's obviously a child of the forest, so you go back far enough, far enough. Go back far enough, and them Starks are basically damn forest elves with wolves. All right, so let's talk about Lyanna. Let's bring this all back to Lyanna. Why is Lyanna a Nissa character? Well, first thing, death in childbirth is one interpretation of the Azor Ahai legend, right? Azor Ahai plunges his sword into Nissa, into her heart. And it's the great sacrifice that breaks Azor Ahai's heart, too. So it's this great sacrifice, both of these people, and what is drawn forth but this bloody burning sword. So think of the Grail child. Lightbringer is a symbol of this important thing. And a lot of people, if you're familiar with, I guess, what's the name of the damn movies? About the Mary Magdalene's secret and the Holy Grail. And I think, I'm so bad with movies. Never actually watched those ones. Point is, this is something that Schmendrick was on to way back before I ever started doing any of this. And he has a famous essay called The Da Vinci Code. Thank you. Schmendrick's essay is not, that's the movie. Schmendrick's essay is called R plus L equals Lightbringer. And it's about how Lyanna and Rhaegar are like Azor Ahai and Nissa, and Jon is like the Lightbringer child. He is like the Grail child. And one of the best clues about this is in the scene where Stannis is doing his Lightbringer ritual on the beach there. It is cradled like a newborn babe. After it's picked up out of the sand, they cradle it in a cloth, and Davos is like, the Red Sword of Heroes looks a bloody mess. So it's like, oh, it's the red babe of heroes. It's a bloody mess because he's just born, and they're cradling it in a cloth. So there's a lot of clues about this. And again, the whole sword, there's a whole sex and sword play thing where Barbie Dustin is talking about Brandon Stark and how he loved his bloody sword, but she's comparing it to the virgin blood on his you-know-what after they slept with each other. And so he just, blood on a sword is a beautiful thing, and he loved to hone his sword, which kind of implies him as a serial masturbator. But I don't think that's the point. The point is, sex and sword play is a symbolic parallel. And the point of it is that parents sacrifice a great deal in order to bring children into the world. And so George is depicting the sacrifice in more extreme and literal terms. People are dying. They're giving up their fertility for magic and stuff. But that's the point, is like, it's a sacrifice to raise children. It's a very basic aspect of it. So, of course, Lyanna Stark dies in childbirth. She dies in childbirth atop a tower, which is like a tree. And it is... it's not just her. It's also Dany's mom dies in childbirth. And even Tyrion's mom dies in childbirth. So this could be part of a pattern. And a lot of the parents of Targaryens die in childbirth, especially non-Targaryen women. And Rhaegar is very Azor Ahai-like. He's got the night black armor. He is a dragon. He's following prophecies, moving with the comet. There's a lot more to it. I don't want to get too lost, and then he's essentially stealing Lyanna right by and taking her to the Isle of Faces. So it's similar to Azor Ahai and Nissa, which, by the way, that sacrifice of Nissa, if I had to guess where it happened, Isle of Faces. That's where I would guess. So the legends of the Hammer of the Waters being called down by the blood sacrifice of children of the forest on the Isle of Faces, that is actually a garbled story of the death of Nissa, a child of the forest, and probably other green men and children, in order to call down the Hammer of the Waters, which, by the way, was a moon meteor. So Nissa dies, the moon cracks, that's the Hammer of the Waters. Child of the forest dying, the moon cracks, the meteors fall down like the hammer. So Rhaegar and Lyanna on the Isle of Faces is a very important Azor Ahai Nissa echo. And that makes Jon as like Lightbringer. He is the Lightbringer child. And of course, what does Jon say in his oath? I am the sword in the darkness that brings the dawn. Right? So he is literally the burning sword. that's supposed to end the long night. Yeah, a lot of these women are in towers. Val's in a tower. Ashara jumps from the tower. Lyanna's in a tower. Sansa's in a bunch of towers. She has great scenes in towers too. Dany climbs the Shadow Tower and then has her thing with the others, and that's inside a grove of haunted trees. Don't want to get lost in the House of the Undying, but extensive parallels there. So keeping with Lyanna, again, she's called a child woman, which means teenager, and is different from child, I will just point out. But we're not doing the Lyanna agency argument. Check out the 3-hour Lyanna character live stream. One of my best live streams, I feel like, if you want the Lyanna, like, full character agency discussion. But yes, a child woman. That's a child of the forest clue. The flowers in her hair is another clue. Not just a reference to the Beatles song and Jenny of Old Stones and all that stuff. It's also about the children of the forest who have branches and roots and flowers and leaves and things in their hair because they're kind of tree-like, they're forest-like. They look like literal children of the forest. And so we see Rhaegar, when he is in the process of sort of like abducting and romancing Lyanna or whatever, that's when he puts the flower crown on her hair. So she is becoming more Weirwood-like or Child of the Forest-like there. And let's see, the Arya thing. I mentioned that. Lyanna and Arya are strong parallels, and Arya looks like a Child of the Forest, and Arya looks like Lyanna. So, Lyanna as a child, which Bran saw in a vision, by the way, saw Lyanna as a child using her wooden sword. The wooden sword is yet another clue, because the warriors of the Children of the Forest are called wood dancers. And so what is Arya doing? She's doing water dancer footwork in the branches of the weirwood tree at Harrenhal. And so here's Lyanna in an echo of Arya with the wooden sword in the Godswood at Winterfell. And Bran is seeing her there. And yeah, shout out to the thumbnail artwork by Claudia Caranfa. Claudia has done, honestly, the best two, I don't like to say best, but two exceptional Lyanna artworks. So let's give her her props. Thanks for reminding me. Oh, she's also done The Sick Mermaid. Oh, and this one. God, she's so good. Okay, here we go. Claudia Caranfa art appreciation moment. Here we go. Caranfa, perhaps. There we go. Make this. So this is the one from the cover. This is actually called A Time for Wolves. And it's great because it intuits the wolves on here. But yeah, this theoretically, it looks more like the Winterfell gods would, but it's got the Knight of the Laughing Tree shield. It's sort of symbolic, which, again, I like. So just absolutely sick. Was happy to use that for the thumbnail. But then this one is the one I used for the Lyanna character stream. She did this too. So, I mean, look at that. That's like Lyanna as Artemis, which I think is a strong parallel. So, that's just exceptional. Also, the look, like, I'm going to teach you a lesson. Like, there's an arrogance there. There's a challenge, a challenging look, which is what Ned says of Lyanna. She tells Robert, she would have stood up to you just like Cersei did. She would have called you a fool, for trying to fight in the melee. Claudia has also done this mermaid, which is the perfect amount of terrifying and ethereal here. So very cool. And then also this Daenerys with Drogon, which is pretty awesome. Let me zoom in on this a little so you can see the whip and the armor here. This is really cool. Daenerys Dragonlord stuff. So shout out Claudia Caranfa. Thank you for your artwork. Does anyone else have green eyes like the special children besides Cannibal? Shaggy Dog. Shaggy Dog does. There might be another dragon with green eyes, but I can't think of it. Okay, so Lyanna using the wooden sword is like using wooden weapons. It's vaguely Child of the Forest like. The more important thing is that she dresses up as the Knight of the Laughing Tree, the Knight of the Weirwood Tree. And there's a really cool quote from Theon. Two of them. The weirwood trees are laughing at Theon. I'm going to read it in a second. Let me get through this list and then I'll read the quote. So essentially what Lyanna is doing is kind of going in and out of the weirwood tree. Lyanna disappears. The weirwood knight appears. Then the weirwood shield is hung on the tree and Lyanna comes back out again. Lyanna goes to the Isle of Faces and disappears. Then reappears at the Tower of Joy, which is kind of like a tree. So you see the pattern here. This could be, it might all be about Nissa, but it could be that Lyanna is lingering still in the crypts of Winterfell, tied to that heart tree and its protection magic. And the other thing that, like I said, she is speaking truth and delivering vengeance and justice from the weirwood. That's kind of what she will be doing if she tells Jon what his purpose is. She'll be speaking truth from the weirwood net and putting him on a course of action and justice, essentially. And then the crying statue. So let's do the crying statue, yes. He was walking through the crypts beneath Winterfell as he had walked 1,000 times before. The kings of winter watched him pass with eyes of ice, and the direwolves at their feet turned their great stone heads and snarled. Last of all, he came to the tomb where his father sat, with Brandon and Lyanna beside him. "Promise me, Ned." "Promise me, Ned," Lyanna's statue whispered. She wore a garland of pale blue roses, and her eyes wept blood. So there's a couple things here. She is a stone statue. The weirwoods petrify and turn to stone. She is weeping blood, obviously. The weirwoods weep blood. She is whispering. That is how the weirwoods communicate, is through whispers. So she is down in the crypts, looking like a weirwood statue, whispering secret truths to Ned. Is she going to be down there whispering secret truths to Jon? Like, this is pretty obvious foreshadowing, and it makes her sound like a weirwood statue. Then we have Theon. Theon is having this crazy dream of Winterfell, and everyone's dead. It says corpse feast. King Robert sat with his guts spilling out on the table from the great gash in his belly, so the green man sacrificed, and Lord Eddard was headless beside him. Corpses lined the benches below, gray-brown flesh sloughing off their bones as they raised their cups to toast, worms crawling in and out of the holes that were their eyes. He knew them, every one, Jory Cassell and Fat Tom, on and on and on, Master of Horse, all of the others who had ridden south to King's Landing never to return. But Micken and Chael sat together, one dripping blood, and the other water. There's the red and white tears. Benford Talhart and his wild hairs filled most of a table. The miller's wife was there as well, and Farland, even the wildling Theon had killed in the Wolf's Wood the day he had saved Bran's life. But there were others, with faces he had never known in life, faces he had seen only in stone. So these are like stark other spirits here. The slim, sad girl who wore a crown of pale blue roses and a white gown spattered with gore could only be Lyanna. So, white gown, weirwood tree, trunk, white bark, spattered with gore. So that's red spots and spatterings of blood. That's comparable to the blood canopy of the weirwoods. Also, the children of the forest, they have spotted or dappled skin. So, this is Lyanna as a spirit lingering in Winterfell, looking like a weirwood tree once again. So maybe she's lingering in Winterfell through the magic of the weirwoods. That's all this theory really is saying. At the end of the day, you know, she didn't live long enough to become the three-eyed crow, but she may have awakened her Green Seer gifts on the Isle of Faces so that she could A, see the future, and B, have the ability to linger and eventually help Jon figure out what he needs to do. Maybe even help his spirit find his way back to his body and help him get reborn. So then we've got another Theon nightmare, and this is the one where he's running through the woods, and let's see, roots grabbed at Theon's feet as he ran, and bare branches lashed his face, leaving thin stripes of blood across his cheeks. So the branches are attacking him, He crashed through heedless, breathless. This is very much like Waymar in the prologue. Icicles flying to pieces before him. Mercy, he sobbed. From behind came a shuddering howl that curdled his blood. Mercy, mercy. This is Arya foreshadowing. I just realized this. These two wolves are actually, it says, okay, I'll come back. They're great wolves the size of horses with the heads of small children. Oh, mercy, mercy. Blood drift from their mouths, black as pitch, burning holes in the snow where it fell. So these children are Bran and Rickon. However, Mercy is a nickname for Arya over in Braavos. And what does Arya do? She leads the damn wolf pack. So this is cool. This is more foreshadowing for Arya leading the wolf pack at the end of the story because, yeah, he's begging for mercy from these Stark werewolves. Also, we see, what was the other line? Great wolves the size of horses, kind of reminding of how Brandon and Lyanna are, have centaur and all that stuff. So, very cool. And then the final thing, the trees all had faces and they were laughing at him, laughing, and the howl came again. So, then came a howl is the entrance line for Lyanna. It's like, oh, the she-wolf gave a howl. And then she comes in with the tourney sword and lays into the squires, right? So here we see the laughing tree called out, and then the howl of the wolf right after they're talking about Arya leading the wolf pack. So this is full Stark warg culture in this not just Bran and Rickon haunting Theon. It's all of the Stark family. It's Arya and Lyanna and the Weirwood tree, and they're kind of all coming after him here. So, just like the Laughing Tree parallel, because again, she's the Knight of the Laughing Tree. By the way, the Knight of the Laughing Tree is a description of the Long Night, when Azor Ahai used the power of the Weirwood net, corrupted it, and caused the Long Night. Night's Queen is the queen during the Long Night. She's the queen of the Night of the Laughing Tree. So, Lyanna is the queen of love and beauty, and also the Knight of the Laughing Tree. I guess I skipped over the obvious, the blue roses. The rose crown is like the lunar halo, and the winter roses are cold. So this names her as a winter queen and a lunar queen. And Night's Queen, obviously her skin is as pale as the moon, and she is frozen and icy. So the halo of winter roses is a very strong Lyanna Night's Queen symbol. Yes. Okay, so where were we here? Oh, back up. So that was the crying statue. And Lyanna Night's Queen stuff is kind of the last piece of this. So, like I said, a lot of the characters that are doing Nissa stuff seem to turn into Night's Queen. Stoneheart is a great example. And Sansa's probably the other one. Sansa also, she turns into a stone as well. Remember I said the Weirwoods petrify and turn to stone? Catelyn goes from a kissed by fire Weirwood woman into a dead, corpse-like Weirwood cave stone goddess. A stone heart, like the heart tree that turned to stone. Stone heart. Like it's not. So Sansa turns into a Lane stone. So she's a stone too, and she's frozen and all that stuff. So Lyanna, when she becomes the Knight of the Laughing Tree and then is sort of reborn as this Weirwood warrior, I believe that Weirwood warrior kind of parallels Jon and the others. And we see the Starks act like others quite a bit. Her child is a snow baby. Okay, and we know in the North, the snow babies are given to the others, like Gilly does. Gilly, by the way, the Gilly flower, those are either lavender, light purple, or pale blue. So, Lyanna of the blue winter rose and Gilly of the pale blue flower. And she is obviously a Night's Queen parallel, giving her children unwillingly to the others, just as Night's Queen did. So, yeah, there's the Gilly parallel, the blue flower, the snow baby, Jon Snow. When her and Rhaegar absconded together, the fall spring ended with a vengeance, and the Blackwater rush froze solid, and it was so cold in King's Landing, it was snowing in King's Landing. Ares had his pyromancers light wildfires outside the walls to drive off winter. It didn't work. So it's this symbolic long night event that happened when Rhaegar and Lyanna connect. So that's a Night's Queen, Night's King thing. Let's see. She is a northern girl, and Rhaegar chased her and caught her, just as Night's King saw Night's Queen beyond the wall and chased her and caught her and loved her. So similar Persephone, Hades, abduction kind of sort of thing. Then we have the name Lyanna. It's a name that George has been using for all his Night's Queen characters. So Lysa Tully, Queen of the Ice Castle, with her moon pale skin and moon brooch and ice everything. She's just an obvious Night's Queen symbol. So Lysa is Lyanna's nickname. There's Alice Karstark, Winter's Lady, who has that icy, wintry outside wedding in the north. Then there's Alysanne, good Queen Alysanne. She rides the dragon Silverwing, and all the silver and white dragons work as basically ice dragons symbolically, because that's what they look like, and specifically with Viserion, it's spelled out. But yeah, also good Queen Alysanne, she has blue eyes, and her hair turns snow white when she's older. So by the time she's visiting the Night Fort, she's looking like the Night's Queen riding an ice dragon. And her name is Alysanne. So Lysa, Alice, Alysanne, Alyssa. Let's see, Alyssa. Oh, that's enough, like Balin and Alyssa. She's the one with the mismatched eyes. One of her eyes is blue, I believe. And then Alanis Harlaw, Theon's mother, is described as cold and corpse-like. She has her baby stolen from her, just as Gilly and Night's Queen do. Taken by the Starks, just like Lyanna's child was. Just like Gilly's child was. Taken back to Winterfell. Obviously, Lyanna is a Stark, but Ned is the one who took Jon back to Winterfell. Took Theon as well. So, Alanis, also a corpse queen. There are more, but those are the ones off the top of my head. Oh yeah, and Silverwing retires to an island in the middle of Red Lake. So an island in the middle of the lake reminds us of the Isle of Faces, obviously. Silverwing is an ice dragon, and she was the dragon of Queen Alysanne. So if Queen Alysanne is a Night's Queen, her dragon is kind of like her spirit. Just go with me here. So like her dragon retiring on this island in Red Lake could be like Lyanna's spirit being in the Weirwood Net. Maybe. And the other thing about Red Lake is it's tied to the Starks, because it's Brandon of the Bloody Blade who turned Blue Lake red by killing children of the forest there, but he may have been impregnating them. Probably was. Silverwing would not be alive anymore, but she presumably had a happy retirement there because she was never really seen again. This is after the dance. This is what happens. So, like I said, Lyanna is the only woman in the crypts of Winterfell. And what does that mean? Like, why is that? It seems significant. And it could be not just because Ned loves her, but because for magical reasons. It's part of the promise me, Ned. Bring my bones back to the crypts. How is it that Arya and Sansa's crypts are already prepared? I think it's just like a family sepulcher that they're looking into. I think it's, I misspoke. She would be the only woman who has a statue. Sorry. I think the way that it works, because it does say like the dark opening, that sounds like the entrance to a sepulcher. So I think that you'll have the King of Winter with his statue out front, but his family members and his body would be entombed in a sepulcher. Because where's it's just the statue. Like there's not a body inside the statue. You know what I mean? The statue is a symbol. So it is behind them that there would be the opening, and that's where the bodies would go. So she's not the only woman in there. She's the only statue. Right, and the statues are specifically, supposedly, to keep the spirits of the kings of winter in the crypts. So the fact that Lyanna has a statue, thank you, who said that? Ron Robinson. Beautiful. The fact that she has a statue implies that her spirit is resting in there. That's nice. And then, of course, again, the stone statue. Yeah, it's more Knights Queen stuff. Very cool. Very cool. Thank you, Ron. Comment of the day winner right there. So let's run a poll. Maynard, are you watching? I didn't think of any small questions. Let's ask the big question. Do you think Lyanna Stark awakened her skin changer gifts on the Isle of Faces? And if we'll just wait a minute, the poll might appear. Or Maynard could be watering his plants. We'll see. The swords, right. The swords. I'm sorry. I did. Well, I interpret it to be all of it, the statue and the sword. But you are correct, Anna. Thank you for clarifying. It is the iron swords, which are specifically said to keep the spirits in. That is correct. But it's only the statues that have the swords. So the fact she has a statue, there you go. Well, April, I mean, if you want to argue about the motivations of what was going on, I mean, you can probably in the comments of the video. But I do think Gerald Hightower was keeping her prisoner, but not Rhaegar. I've talked about that. Did Lyanna awaken her gifts on the Isle of Faces? Wow, we like the theory. George, give us another book, please. It's cool. I'll take it. Appreciate I'm glad you guys like it. I'm not necessarily convinced. I wouldn't say, oh, this is definitely what happened. But it does seem plausible. Like I said, there's no reason why not. It does serve a function in the story. It would preserve her spirit in order to talk to Jon. And it would also allow her to see the future herself so that she's not this little 14, 15, 16-year-old girl being manipulated by Rhaegar and Howland Reed and the Green Men. Yeah, well, some people think Rhaegar is not a good guy. I think he was doing his best. But I'm tired of the argument, so you can watch my RLJ videos and my Lyanna stream if you want to hear my opinions on it. But yeah, we don't know. We certainly don't have the whole story. The thing I always just remind people is that when you're trying to figure out, like in our modern world, a 22-15 age gap, it's not appropriate. Okay, this is why we have laws about adults and minors. Nobody disagrees with that. What we're trying to evaluate would be Rhaegar's motivation and his character. And so the point of bringing up the times that they lived in is that girls who were 14 and 15, if you want to call them teenagers or if you want to call them children or minors or whatever you want to say, they are getting betrothed and married. Ideally, they are not having children until after 16, but we see that line get pushed down a bit with certain Targaryen queens. That's not necessarily a good thing, of course. But when we're looking at Rhaegar, as far as a 22, is it creepy that a 22-year-old spotted a 15-year-old and was interested in her? In the context of that world, no. That's not weird. Like, nobody in that world would look at Rhaegar and be like, you're creepy. Now, he was already married. That is more of a case for like, oh, that's weird. But the age gap does not make Rhaegar a pervert or a weirdo. It just doesn't. That would be applying a modern context onto like the character evaluation of the people of that day. So that is the sort of nuanced clarification that I will offer. Now, George is asking us to critique all this stuff, so there's nothing wrong with pointing at it and be like, yeah, this is not a good system, okay? And I always point out, like, Lyanna was already betrothed by the age of 14 to Robert, who was 19, and who was an alcoholic and a womanizer, so that's not great either. Hey, Dave, have you ever seen The Black Cauldron? It's based on a pentology full of mythical themes and symbolism. No, I have not, but I'll look into it since you recommended it. Thank you. Oops, wrong way. Now, I do think, like I said, when you look at Rhaegar and Lyanna's actions, it's kind of inexplicable. Like, they didn't start the war, but they sure helped. And they just disappeared for a long time. They didn't explain anything. I really think the answer is going to be magic and prophecy. Like, they went to the Isle of Faces. Why did they go to the Isle of Faces? Like, it's obviously a magical reason. So they would have left the Isle of Faces with an understanding that they were conceiving the prince that was promised. Before they ever conceived him, they would have understood that that's what they were doing. Lyanna didn't just get pregnant. You know, we know Rhaegar was thinking 3 kids, 3 heads as the dragon, 3 princes that were promised or whatever. We know he was thinking that. But the fact that they went to the Isle of Faces means that Lyanna and Rhaegar would have been on the same page by the time they left the Isle of Faces. Yeah, they're kind of both prisoners on the Isle of Faces. It's true. I mean, the Green Men are in charge of letting you in, on and off the island. That is true. But yeah, the point is, why did they hide from everyone and not explain it? Because they were doing something weird to fulfill prophecy, and nobody else would have understood, and everyone else would have tried to interfere and stop them. That's why. I don't see how it's going to be. It's going to be some version of that. How do you think Rhaegar convinced Lyanna his dream was real? Do you think she was simply inclined to magic, or maybe she could have shared a vision or dream? Well, that's kind of what I'm talking about. That is a whole point of the stream, was like, if she has some connection to the Weirwoods. And I guess I should have pointed out, even if she's not a Green Seer, she could just be like a low-level green dreamer like Jojen. Like, Jojen can't even skin change animals, but he has visions. And this happened after he had like a fever, and the 3-eyed crow booped him. And then he had visions. So maybe Lyanna had just a green sight awakened. Even Jaime has a Weirwood vision just by sleeping on the stump, right? That's just one vision. So that would only take a day. The fact they could have stayed there longer implies, training montage. But any of those possibilities could make sense. We don't know what color Lyanna's eyes were. So I think that's pretty much everything that I had prepared here. I see you guys have some good questions that we're turning over. So yeah, if you guys have more questions about all this, fire them away. But you kind of see what I'm getting at here. We know that she's got the bloodline. We've got all this stuff about going in and out of the Weirwood net and becoming a Weirwood warrior and going to the Isle of Faces and potentially lingering in the crypts and talking to Ned and looking like a Weirwood tree. So that's more or less the theory. And it would be an echo of Nissa still, because Nissa's spirit is definitely in the Weirwood net. And that is got to be remedied. So in some of these scenes, it looks like she is the Weirwood net. Like Ygritte's blood turns into the pond. So now the sea is her blood. And the green Dothraki sea also turns to blood. So, yeah, we talked about the horse stuff earlier, if you joined us late. And that line about her with the horse is like, it could be a clue. Yeah, and it may not have been that she was warging the horse, but it could have enhanced her affinity with it, for sure. Have we determined if the Winterfell crypts connect to other tunnels around Westeros? Not for sure, but it's implied. If you think about the Bael the Bard story, it's the obvious explanation for how did they survive for a year down there, is that Bael the Bard knew how to get out into the forest and go hunting and come back. Maybe even had allies slipping them stuff, but you can't really sneak up that spiral staircase and open that door, which opens out right to the open air next to the first keep. Like, you can't sneak out of the crypts that way. So, and obviously the caverns go all through the hills and do run to the Wolf's Wood, so it's strongly implied. Hope you don't mind a little innocent trolling. No, it keeps me honest. It's fine. Thank you. I appreciate you. Yeah, so what would Lyanna have seen? The Long Night, and she would have seen Jon's role, the need for Jon, basically. Any chance Lyanna had a second life? Not in an animal. It doesn't seem like it, no. There wasn't an animal there at her death. So it's more like taking her bones back to the crypts, which are connected to the Weirwood Net, I think. What do you think's behind the 5/4? You'd have to ask Grey Waste Tim. I did a 5/4 stream with Grey Waste Tim, so that's probably the stream for you. Maybe that's why the tunnels got caved in after the Bale the Bard incident. Yeah, any number of reasons, but narratively, we just can't go down there yet. Did you notice that in the Histories and Lore video, they kind of confirmed that Littlefinger did set up Brandon Stark? No, I didn't. Which season is that? I would love to get more on that, because it does seem implied, but not really spelled out. What season Histories of Lore is that, Randall? Could the Weirwoods have shown Lyanna the past, not the future? I don't know that the past would be the thing. She would really need to see the future. Do you think Lyanna knew she was going to die like Jojen did? That's possible. That is very possible, that she knew that she didn't have long to live, and that's part of why she was wanting to conceive Jon, like realizing that that's what she had to do. It's a lot of tragic ways that you could spin that. And we'll just have to see what George does when he writes it sometime. So probably, I think that does make sense. And no, you don't have to have colored eyes to be a Green Seer. Bran has blue eyes of the Tullys, and he's a Green Seer. That's for children of the forest that have green or red eyes instead of gold. Yeah, Howland is still alive. He's in the swamp. George has said that we haven't seen him because he knows too much. The Green Men probably gave Rhaegar and Lyanna Weirwood paste. So yeah, I covered that at the beginning. It would have been a sacrificed Green Man, which would make some pretty powerful paste, by the way. And yes, I wore the green glasses. Gotta go with the theory. Got the horns. Howland Reed may have officiated the wedding. I forgot to say that in the video, but yeah. He may have officiated the wedding on the Isle of Faces, definitely. So I'm really interested in the ghost of Highheart. That's the other thing I touched on. I have to think that she is sharing her visions with Rhaegar. And I don't see why she wouldn't be on the Isle of Faces. So she may have helped Howland get out there for all we know. She's roaming around the Riverlands there. I mean, that's her territory. So I hope we learn more about the ghost of the Highheart. Let's do another poll. Let's close this poll. Maynard Plum. I'm going to end this one. Was the ghost of Highheart involved? And that's all you need to type. But the longer question is, involved in Rhaegar and Lyanna visiting the Isle of Faces? Was the ghost of Highheart involved? Because I think she was. And that's interesting because she could potentially still give us some information. Oh, let's talk about the conception on the Isle of Faces. Yeah, do you guys... Somebody told me that there is an Arthurian character conceived on the Isle of Avalon. But I couldn't find it. So does anyone know if that's true? Because if it is, that would strongly strengthen the idea that Jon would have been conceived on the Isle of Faces. And what would the point of that being? Again, warding magic. Maybe they didn't want the others. Yeah, Mordred. That's what they said, but I couldn't find it. Okay, so Mordred. And Mordred is the child of who? I think it works as a Jon parallel. Because Jon has this Night's King, evil name, Snow stuff going on. And who is the evil name, exactly. And who is Mordred's mother? Morgana. Morgas or Morgana? It's Morgan Le Fay, right? There's different versions. There's different versions. So, yeah, I definitely think that it kind of makes sense to see that as a parallel. Jon born on the Isle of Faces. Because the whole point of him being born on the Isle of Faces is to protect him from the vision of the others. And remember, at the Tower of Joy, when he's born, I keep saying born when I mean conceived. Conceived on the Isle of Faces, obviously born at the Tower of Joy. However, we see the others watching at the Tower of Joy, right? In Ned's dream, the blue eyes of death are in the rose petals strewn across the sky. And the blue eyes of death are the others. And their eyes are like stars, which are in the sky. And so I've always implied or inferred that to mean that the others are watching at the scene of the Tower of Joy. They're watching for Jon, metaphorically. Jon is the prince that was promised to the others because the ancient Starks stole a baby from the others, the last hero probably. And that's in the Stark bloodline. And so if the others are watching his birth, maybe they didn't want them to see his conception for some reason. Maybe he was born with more magic, being born on the Isle of Faces. I don't know. So I'm open to comments, but that is a great parallel. Mordred and Jon. Jon is also parallel to Monster, Gilly's baby, who is called Monster. So. Conceived, yes, not born. Conceived on the Isle of Faces, born at the Tower of Joy. Could have been. Could have been. Only the green men were watching Rhaegar and Lyanna do it, not the others. Yeah, so I do think the God's Eye weirwoods are still green. Check out my video, the green weirwoods. But yeah, that's what the painting looks like, and I think that's what Garth Green Hands is all about. The weirwoods have red hands now, but before the corruption, they would have been green. Also, they're red because they drink the blood of people, but originally they were absorbing green men with green blood, so they would have had green leaves. Monster, I think, is like the others might be coming for him. He could be sacrificed. Yes, some people have said maybe he'll be sacrificed. But I don't know. We can't kill Shireen and Ghost and Monster to resurrect Jon. I don't think we need that many. Yeah, I mean, check out the Green Weirwoods video, Nardonic. I explained it in a very coherent fashion there. Thank you, Orange Tabby. So that would be, another reason why they might have had to go out there is to conceive Jon. On the Isle of Faces. No, he's dead. Jon's dead. He's going to be dead. He's going to be a man and then a wolf and then a man again, which implies second life, which means he's dead. Also, it was a jugular wound. That's why the blood was welling so fast. Maybe Jon's dad isn't Rhaegar, but some green man. G plus L equals J. New theory. Love it. Mordred's birth is also prophesied by Merlin. Oh, that's cool. Nice job. Thank you, River Mist Fae. Green man's surrogate father. That's funny. Things did get wild. Yeah, they did. You think Jon could get any messages from Lyanna? Yeah, Andrew, you must be joining late. That's one of the whole points of Lyanna being a Green Seer, was that she can give Jon information about his destiny while he's dead and dreaming. Or maybe after he's resurrected. So, that's cool, guys. I think we pretty much nailed it. It is 1 hour and 55 minutes. I think I will end this stream before it hits 2 hours, just so people look at it and they're like, wow, this is a short live stream. But I do have a couple more minutes for last questions, and then we'll dip on out of here. Morgas. I thought Morgas is Mordred's mom originally, yeah, but there are multiple versions. Do I think the others will reach the God's Eye? No, but I think that might be what they are going for. Especially if those are the last green weirwoods. Yes, I think they are going for them, but they won't get there. The Dothraki video. Well, if Alana, I did a live stream about this in the Great Empire of the Dawn playlist called Origins of the Dothraki. I'm going to condense it and add some new ideas. It'll have maps. And it'll talk about them crossing the Bones and the Jogos Nai and the Sarnori and all that stuff. But also this Warg theory and Ifukevron. Oh, nice, River Mist Fae. Brandon and Lyanna being prolific horse riders. Yggdrasil is, of course, called Odin's horse, and he rides it as a gallows tree. So that's another layer of it, yeah. The Georges using horses as weirwood symbols all over the place. So I should have mentioned that. Yep. Why do you think Hallen got passed over by the three-eyed raven? Well, he probably wasn't a full Green Seer. He just didn't have the gift that Bran does. Blood Raven was still going. I still got fire in my belly. Do I think Nissa could be a dragon? No, but I think there's a parallel to the myth that could be talking about the dragon bond that works like that. Check out my explanation of the my Targaryen tapestry explained. I got into it there. Sleipnir, yep. It's not it's actually Sleipnir, not Sleepnir. Oh, let me didn't real quick, we'll do a flash poll. I can't type. Was the ghost of High Heart involved? Real quick, yes or no. Was the ghost of High Heart involved with this visit to the Isle of Faces? No, I don't think so. I don't think that Daemon is a three-eyed crow. I've talked about it a bunch. I'm not a fan of the theory, but it is a good theory. I guess I am a fan of the theory, but I'm not convinced of it. That's what I would say. But check out Gray Area's channel. She is the originator of this stuff, and she's got several videos about it. It's debatable how much crossover there is between House of the Dragon lore and Ice and Fire lore. But a lot of people do think that. I do not. How's our poll going? 75% yes. Yeah, she's got to be involved. Come on. Come on. Yeah, Sleipnir is an 8-legged horse, so that ties into the spiders. Check out my ice spiders. The ice spiders stream is where I have the most Sleipnir stuff, but I've also got a playlist, Norse mythology and Ice and Fire, where I talked about it as well. Yeah, I just don't see how Daemon can be a Greenseer. He doesn't have the right blood, in my opinion, but, you know. Cool, guys. Well, thank you very much. Appreciate you. Thanks for dropping by, and I'll see you next Sunday with another live stream and some more videos soon, and yeah, there you go. Cheers.